My name is Isabelle Moore. I'm 37 years old, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina, a quiet town where the air smells like pine and rain, and the mountains seem to press in with secrets of their own. There was a time I felt fully alive, efficient, sharp, in control. I managed supply chains and staff at a regional logistics company. My mind used to operate like clockwork numbers, tasks, decisions. Now, though, it feels like trying to run through syrup. Lately, I've been losing time, misplacing simple things like my car keys, forgetting appointments I swore I had written down, arriving at the office with no memory of the route I drove. Some mornings I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize my own face eyes, swollen, skin pale, bruises I couldn't explain. And the dreams, always the same sealed room, the same quiet whisper on the other side of the door. Never words I could make out, just that awful tone that left my spine cold and stiff with fear. All of it started about 3 months ago, the same time Lucas began making me tea every night. "You need better sleep, Izzy," he'd say softly, placing the mug in my hands as I curled up on the couch, already half asleep. "You've been pushing yourself too hard." I used to find that gesture sweet. Lucas is a real estate developer, the type who plans before he speaks, who prides himself on knowing what's best. For the longest time, I thought I could relax around him. I thought I was safe. But the tea always knocked me out too fast. 10 minutes, and I couldn't hold my head up. It wasn't the gentle drift of sleep. It felt more like I'd been shoved into unconsciousness, like someone flipping a switch behind my eyes. I started asking what kind of tea it was. He'd chuckle and say it was a local herbal mix from a specialty shop downtown, but never showed me the packaging. I never saw him prepare it either. Always ready just after I showered or returned from errands. He claimed it was steeped fresh, but sometimes I'd catch a faint chemical sharpness beneath the usual notes of mint and honey. Then there was the way he watched me drink it. Subtle, but present, like he was waiting for the moment my eyes drooped or my limbs gave out. I started pretending to sip, watching his reactions. One evening, I only touched the tea to my lips. A second later, he asked, "Not feeling tired yet?" I brushed it off. "Guess it's just one of those nights," but his eyes darkened just slightly. It wasn't just the tea. Lucas had started snapping at small things show I folded laundry, where I placed my shoes, the way I left my jacket over a dining chair. He'd throw it down, mumbling that I was always making a mess. But then he'd catch himself and smile, act as though nothing happened. I stopped trusting that smile. Eventually, I couldn't pretend it was just stress or lack of sleep anymore. Not when I woke up one morning with a dark bruise on the inside of my upper arm and no idea where it came from. I needed someone who could help me make sense of this, someone who wouldn't think I was crazy. So I called Jasmine, my college roommate, and now a senior pharmacist in Raleigh. We hadn't spoken in a while, but I didn't need small talk. "Can you meet tonight?" I asked, trying to keep the panic from creeping into my voice. "It's urgent!" She didn't even hesitate. "My place. 8 o'clock. Bring the tea or anything connected to it." That night, I drove through the rain with the mug in a sealed bag, my stomach in knots. Jasmine's apartment smelled like eucalyptus and lemon balm, her windows lined with tiny succulents and textbooks. She handed me a fresh cup of chamomile and told me to talk. And for the first time in weeks, I let the truth spill out like floodwater. I told her about the overwhelming fatigue, the dreams, the forgotten hours, the tea that seemed to anchor it all. She listened, no interruptions, her brows slowly drawing together in concern. When I mentioned the sharp smell, almost metallic, she put down her cup and stared hard at the sealed bag. "Isabelle," she said, You may have been ingesting a sedative or something chemically related. There are water-soluble compounds that don't taste strong, leave little trace, but can completely knock out your nervous system. Some even affect memory if used repeatedly. I felt a rush of nausea. You mean he's been drugging me? She didn't answer at first. Instead, she walked to her cabinet and pulled out a basic home testing kit. Don't confront him. Not yet. Stop drinking it, but pretend like you still do. Pour it out, watch his behavior, keep notes. If you can, bring me a few samples, and Izzy stay safe. That night, back home, Lucas greeted me like nothing was wrong. Long day? He asked, handing me a cup. Chamomile tonight. Thought you might need it. I smiled as best I could and nodded, carrying it over to the window. Outside, wind rustled through the sycamore tree. As he turned toward the kitchen, I gently tilted the mug into the soil of the potted fern by the window. A few drops hit the leaves and rolled off like tears. I held the empty cup to my lips when I sat back down. Lucas glanced over. Smells different? He asked. I hesitated. Maybe. Did you add something? Just ginger and a touch of honey, he said with a soft shrug. You like it? I forced another smile. Sure, it's nice. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, back turned, breath steady, pretending to be out cold. The house creaked around me. I waited and waited. Eventually, I heard the floorboards shift, then soft steps to soft, not toward the bedroom, but the office. I slipped out of bed quietly, every muscle clenched, and crept to the hallway. The office door was slightly ajar. Through the sliver, I saw the light from my laptop screen reflecting off his face. He was in my email, my bank folders, scanning, copying. A black flash drive sat plugged into the side, its red light blinking as files transferred. I saw him open my personal documents, passport scans, social security number, house deed. He didn't even hesitate. He printed some of it. I watched him pull out his leather briefcase and place the papers inside, like he was preparing for a job interview. Then he did something worse. He opened a loan application website and started filling it out. In my name. For 85. 0. Collateral? Our apartment. The one I bought before we ever met. My breath caught. My nails dug into the wall. He wasn't just lying. This was calculated. This was theft. Dressed in the clothes of a man who kissed me goodnight. He shut the laptop, locked the briefcase, and left the room. I dashed back to bed, heart slamming so hard it shook the mattress. Seconds later, he entered, leaned down, and kissed my temple. Sleep tight, baby, he whispered. Just a few more steps. That whisper sounded too close to the one from my dreams. I didn't move until I heard him snoring on the couch. And in that frozen silence, I realized I wasn't just being drugged, I was being erased. By the time the sun rose the next morning, my decision was clear. I didn't write a note. I didn't slam the door. I just slipped out, keys in hand, coat thrown over my shoulder, one quiet step after another. With every step, I felt like I was peeling off another layer of trust that had kept me in the dark. I drove straight to Jasmine's pharmacy. She wasn't on shift yet, but I waited outside in the parking lot like a stray. The moment she pulled up and saw my face pale, sleepless eyes rimmed with red, she didn't ask a single question. She parked and waved for me to follow her home. In her apartment kitchen, I sat shaking, hands curled around a glass of water, trying not to sob. Jasmine knelt in front of me, placed a hand on my shoulder, and said something that jolted me from my spiral. We're not going to let him finish what he started. 2 hours later, We were in the office of Noah Bell, a civil attorney Jasmine had worked with during a patent case a year ago. His office sat on the 5th floor of a modest building in downtown Asheville, the windows fogged by steady rain. He was calm, focused. "I need your IDs, banking documents, anything that connects you to your financial assets," he said after hearing the outline. I placed everything I had in a neat pile. My passport, the property title in my name, my most recent bank statement. I even brought the flash drive Jasmine had used to scan the sample of the tea I poured into the fern. Noah didn't flinch. "We're going to move quickly. First, we lock your account checking. Savings, credit. I'll call your bank myself while you sit right here." He was already dialing. My phone was placed in front of him, my hands too unsteady to hold it. "Second," he said while the call rang, "we file an identity theft report with the 3 major bureaus Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. We request an immediate freeze on new accounts, loans, anything that might be opened in your name." I stared at him, numb but somehow steadier. "We'll need a written statement," he continued. "Everything you saw, every file he accessed, every detail of that loan application, even the name of the USB drive, if you remember." "I do," I said quietly. "It was labeled Austin Holdings." His eyebrows lifted. "Good, that might be traceable." By the end of that afternoon, Noah had called in a digital forensics specialist, filed a formal fraud report with the county, and arranged a secure storage location for all of my physical documents. He handed me a burner phone, instructed me to change every password I owned, and asked one final question. "Do you have somewhere safe to stay for at least the next 10 days? "Yes, with Jasmine." "Good. Don't go back to the apartment, not even to collect things. We'll arrange that through legal notice." I nodded, every word sinking into me like bricks rebuilding a collapsed foundation. That night, curled up on Jasmine's small couch, I finally let myself cry. Not out of fear this time, but relief. A raw, uncertain hope that maybe I hadn't already lost everything. Lucas called the next morning. His name lit up my new phone like a curse. I stared at it for a while, then answered. "Isabelle," he said, his voice frantic. "Where are you? Why didn't you come home? I've been trying to reach you all night." I didn't answer at first. I wanted to hear how far he'd go, how long he'd pretend to be the worried husband. "You just vanished," he continued, breath shaky. "Did something happen? Are you okay?" I took a breath. "Why don't you tell me what happened, Lucas?" Silence. "You know," I said, letting the calm in my voice sharpen like ice. "The laptop, the USB, the loan application in my name, the fake signatures, the Austin Holdings file you were transferring while I was supposedly passed out." Another silence. Then, "Isabelle, whatever you think you saw, you're confused. You've been tired, overworked. You know how much pressure we've both been under. Maybe you dreamed it." "I didn't drink the tea, Lucas," I cut in. "Not last night, not the night before. I've been pretending, and I know exactly what you've been putting in it." His voice faltered. "Izzy, that's crazy. You think I'd drug you?" "I know you did." I let the silence hang, listening to the way his breathing shifted. Shallow, tight. "I've contacted an attorney. All of my accounts are frozen. The banks are notified. The police have your documents. And I'm filing for divorce this week." His tone snapped like elastic. "You don't know what you're doing. You're ruining us." "I didn't mean to. It was just money. Just a way to get out of a hole. I wasn't going to actually—" "You were going to disappear with everything I own," I said, cutting him off. "And don't bother denying it. I know about the Scottsdale apartment, the white convertible, the emails to her. He gasped. What? Vanessa, I said, or whatever name she goes by now. You and she were planning to leave. Once you drained my savings, sold the apartment under my name, wiped my credit, don't pretend. He didn't speak. I'm done, Lucas. Whatever you thought I was passive, naive, in love, I'm not her anymore. He finally whispered, Please, let me explain. You're wrong. You're paranoid. I made a mistake. Just come home. We can talk. I'm not coming home, I said. I'm going forward. That's all that matters now. I hung up. For a long time, I just stared out Jasmine's window. She walked in with 2 mugs of tea, real tea, and sat next to me in silence. You okay? She asked finally. I nodded. I think. I finally am. The next morning, I returned to Noah's office. He was already waiting with a folder in his hand and a grave expression on his face. Our digital contact pulled email records from a secondary account accessed on your device, he said. You'll want to see this. He opened his laptop. There they were. Hundreds of messages between Lucas and a woman named Vanessa, real name Vanessa Cruz, a former coworker from a real estate project in Texas. The subject lines were like knife wounds. Wipe plan on track. Isabelle's nearly out. Property deed next. The beach place you wanted is ready. They'd been communicating for over 6 months. It started innocently, then quickly evolved into something twisted. God, I hate pretending to love her, Vanessa wrote. Just a bit longer, Lucas replied. She's out cold every night after tea. I'm handling it. Attached to one message was a lease agreement for a beachfront condo in Mexico, signed by Vanessa, backed by Lucas's financial records that were stolen from my accounts. Another thread included mock-ups of new identities, photos of furniture, lists of wire transfers. They had planned every step. Lucas hadn't just betrayed me. He had plotted to eliminate me from my own existence piece by piece, drop by drop. And now I had the proof. Noah leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, watching me absorb the reality. The emails weren't just deceitful, they were surgical. Each message detailed timelines, financial transfers, relocation plans. They were moving money, changing names, picking out furniture for a life they'd built on my back. They weren't just fantasizing, Noah said, voice steady. They were acting. Lucas and Vanessa had already created a joint offshore account in Belize. The name linked to it is Greenvale Partners, but the IP addresses trace back here to Asheville. And there's more. A travel itinerary booked in both their names for next month. Destination: Lisbon. It hit me hard. That was where I always said I wanted to retire. A dream I told Lucas over wine on the porch, thinking I was sharing something intimate. And now he had taken it, filed it away like a stolen dream and repurposed it for their escape. My breath felt tight in my throat. I stared at the screen, unable to tear my eyes from a single message. It was one I hadn't seen yet. Izzy's fading fast. By next week, she won't even question what day it is. You're amazing. Just a little more patience. Just a little more patience? That's all I was to the man obstacle with a countdown clock. I pushed back from the table and stood. My legs were stiff, but steady. Noah nodded silently, closing the laptop. We'll press charges, he said. Wire fraud, identity theft, attempted financial conspiracy, and we'll send a copy of this to the Financial Crimes Unit. He'll be facing serious prison time. But, Isabelle, you need to be ready for him to fight back. Manipulators don't just let go. He may try to reach you again. I'm not scared of him anymore. I said. And I wasn't. Not really. Because fear relies on illusion, and Lucas had already torn that down himself. That night, I sat with Jasmine and printed every one of those emails. I didn't need to study them. I needed to own them, to hold them physically, like evidence that I hadn't imagined it all, that the gaslighting, the nightmares, the forgotten time, they were real, and now they belonged to the past. I filed for divorce on the following Monday, quietly, no confrontation, no drama, just my signature on a document that closed the chapter on a man who once kissed my forehead every night while planning my erasure. That afternoon, I returned to work. Some people were surprised to see me. There were awkward glances, hesitant half smiles. I didn't care. I wasn't there to explain my absence. I wasn't there to reclaim anything. I was simply there because I refused to let that man's betrayal define the rest of my life. I asked for every overdue project, took every spreadsheet, audit, analysis, buried myself in data, letting numbers and logic wash over me like something pure. The more I worked, the more I could breathe. The fog that had haunted my mind for weeks began to lift. I wasn't broken, I was recalibrating. 3 weeks later, I was called into a meeting with executive leadership. They offered me a promotion team lead for a major initiative launching in our Chicago branch. A few years ago, I might have cried from excitement. But now, all I felt was clarity. I accepted. By early spring, I sold the apartment, the one Lucas tried to use as collateral. Every piece of furniture, every rug, every glass that reminded me of that life went with it. I didn't want anything that had absorbed his presence. I moved into a small craftsman home near Lake Juniper, where the mornings were quiet and my dreams no longer came with locked doors or whispering voices. Jasmine helped me redecorate. More than once, she stayed over just to make sure I never felt alone. But the truth is, I was starting to like being alone. It gave me room to hear myself again. She encouraged me to start painting, something I hadn't done since college. At first, I resisted. I was too tired, too distracted, too everything. But one rainy weekend, I pulled out an old canvas and let my hand move freely. I didn't think. I didn't try to impress. I just painted. The brush became a lifeline. Shapes turned into stories. Shadows turned into emotions I didn't have words for. I painted fear. I painted release. I painted what it felt like to reclaim my own breath. That summer, I traveled. Alone. Paris, Vienna, Oslo, then Lisbon. I wandered without a map. I stood in front of paintings for hours. I drank coffee at midnight. I wrote postcards to no one. And I smiled, truly smiled for the first time in over a year. Not because I was healed, but because I was whole. In Lisbon, I reconnected with Emily, another old college friend. She had lived through her own kind of betrayal, different but familiar. We talked until dawn one night, candles flickering, sharing the ways we had both been hurt. But more importantly, the ways we had chosen to rise. When I returned to Asheville that fall, I wasn't the same woman. I came back with an idea for a local art exhibit, a dozen sketches tucked inside my suitcase, and a proposal for a self-led wellness initiative at work. I didn't need permission to create anymore. I passed Lucas once by accident. It was a crisp October day. I was walking past a new bookstore downtown when I caught a glimpse of him through the window. He was thinner, pale, sitting alone in the corner, clutching a thick folder. Hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled, eyes empty. He looked up, and our eyes met. He froze, and I didn't. I turned, not coldly, not cruelly, just with a calm, simple grace. I adjusted my scarf and kept walking, as if he had never been anything more than a passing figure on the street. I didn't look back, because there was nothing behind me I needed. The last stretch of autumn brought a quiet I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just the stillness of my new home, or the routine I had built from the ground up. It was the quiet inside me, the noise of fear, of suspicion, of that constant questioning. It had faded. It didn't happen overnight. Healing never does. But it came, gradually, like dawn through thick fog. I started each morning with tea of my own making. I chose the herbs. I chose the heat. There was something oddly powerful about that small act brewing for myself. No hidden blends, no lies in a cup. Just honesty and warmth. The exhibit proposal I'd written in Lisbon got picked up by a local gallery. They gave me a corner room, soft lighting, and a launch date in early January. I named the series Shadows That Sleep, a collection of paintings that blended light and distortion, the visual echo of surviving manipulation. Opening night, the room filled slowly friends, co-workers, people I hadn't seen in years. Jasmine stood near the entrance, beaming. When someone asked what the series was about, I told them the truth. It's about losing yourself and then choosing to come back. A few weeks later, I received notice that the fraud charges against Lucas had moved forward. There was a formal indictment, digital evidence, bank traces, witness statements. Vanessa had disappeared, fled to Central America. Most likely, but Lucas was alone, cornered. No money, no power, no way out of the truth. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted distance, peace. The court allowed me to testify through affidavit. I included a line that meant the most to me. This isn't just a story about a man who stole. It's about a woman who almost vanished and decided not to. The final hearing came and went. I didn't attend. Instead, I was sitting in a coffee shop by Lake Juniper, notebook in hand, sketching a quiet scene, a woman with wind in her hair, standing barefoot in water, looking at nothing but the sky. She wasn't crying. She wasn't waiting. She was simply being. And in that moment, I realized I had become her. There's a strange power in surviving betrayal. You stop fearing the things that once kept you small. You stop asking why they did it and start asking what you're going to do next. For me, the answer was simple. Live. I now speak occasionally at local community events, quiet sessions for women who've been through emotional manipulation, financial abuse, or psychological betrayal. I don't give them solutions. I just tell them my story. Sometimes that's all it takes, to know you're not crazy, to know someone else made it through. People ask me sometimes if I ever miss Lucas, if I ever remember the good times, the laughter, the early days. I do. But then I remember the silence, the tea, the erasure. And I remember that love without respect isn't love at all. It's control wearing a charming face. He didn't just try to steal from me. He tried to delete me. But I'm still here. Stronger, clearer, unapologetically whole. And if you've ever been where I waist strapped in a perfect life that slowly starts to rot from the inside, let me tell you something you need to hear. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not broken. And you can start again, even if it means walking away from everything you once thought was home. Because freedom doesn't always come with a door flung open. Sometimes it comes quietly in the choice not to drink the tea. If stories like this moved you, and you'd like to hear more powerful, true-to-life voice narratives, don't forget to follow the channel. Your next story might be the one that changes everything